This is the Contenders Edge Podcast, where ideas challenge institutions and underdogs rise to lead in construction. Hosted by Zulq, bringing you no BS insights, real stories, and tech-smart strategies to outbuild the giants in the construction industry.
Good day, everyone. My name is Zulq Malik. I'm going to be the host today of our podcast series, and it's my absolute pleasure to have who I consider a very dear friend of mine, Bryce Wisan, to join us today. And Bryce and I got connected. It's kind of a personal story, but I had a family situation in the state of Nevada, and I got introduced through a third party that says, hey, reach out to Bryce. He might be able to help you out. Bryce, who was an absolute stranger, didn't know who I was kind enough to help me deal with some financial matters for one of my cousins who passed away during COVID. And he died intestate, which for all the other people on the planet, had no will. We had no documentation, and he lived a kind of a nomadic. I won't say nomadic is probably the wrong word, but he lived an isolated lifestyle, and accomplished surgeon. But we had no way of dealing with this during COVID period. And Bryce, who absolutely by the will of a higher power, and both Bryce and I believe in higher powers, he came out to the rescue and said, "Hey, let me help you out as best as I can because I'm down here for you." And he paved the way for me. So it's my absolute pleasure to have you join us today, Bryce, as one of our very first podcast series. Welcome.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So, Bryce, there's a reason we have you here. It's because you have some pretty profound experience in accounting, especially in the construction experience. Maybe you can tell a little bit about yourself, why people should be listening to you.
I think you just called me a nerd, and that's okay. I wear that as a badge of honor. I am an accountant, CPA. I have been focusing on the construction industry. I spent 15 years as a CPA in public practice. Most of that time as a partner at a couple of different firms. Helped run the construction practice as part of the executive committee at Bailey, at the time a top 10 construction firm in the country by size. And spent 3 years outside the industry as a CFO, learned some great lessons, and just under a year ago started Levigo to provide outsourced accounting services for contractors. So yes, construction accounting is my professional passion.
That's awesome. So as a former construction business owner, I got to tell you, you guys are the ones that I didn't get along with the most. I needed you the most, but we didn't get along because with a degree in engineering, the order of magnitude of uncertainty is a little bit different. Like we have factors of safety, so we're like, that's safe enough. You guys are very precise when it comes to math. You like everything to the penny, the left and the right side of the column, which I still don't understand what it means.
Yeah, debits and the credits.
Debits and credits, man. So we're diametrically opposed when it comes to money. You know, on projects we were plus or minus $10,000. We're like, hey, close enough. And then the accounting department comes along and says, what the hell are you guys doing? Plus or minus 10,000 is not a range. It's like get to the penny. So Bryce, I want to have a conversation today about cash flow. And how it's become such a pitfall in the industry that when we are overbilling on projects, we seem to think that money belongs to us. So maybe we can talk about recognizing what cash flow is and how companies in the industry tend to do overbilling and what the problems are associated with that.
Yeah, you bet. So you talk about cash flow, and I think I would characterize the difficulty around cash flow a little bit differently by saying it's the unpredictability of cash flow that's the problem, and that's what causes a lot of issues. So for me, and then you talked about the overbillings. I love overbillings, but I also love chocolate. You can't eat too much chocolate or bad things happen. You can't overbill too much or it can get you into trouble. Especially like you say, if you start acting like that money is yours. And if you overbill and then aren't prepared for unpredictable cash flows in the near future, that can cause real headaches. So I agree, it's a real problem area for contractors to overbill and think that the money is theirs. I like contractors to be slightly overbilled, but I want them to know that they're overbilled.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is that as a contractor, you see that money sitting in your bank account, and all of a sudden the trip to Vegas looks pretty good.
It does look good. It always looks good.
It always looks good to Vegas. And then you realize, wait a minute, I still have unknown expenses. So maybe we can talk about the context of recognizing revenue versus payables and how they must intersect in a very delicate manner, because sometimes your revenue is higher than where your payable line is, and the payables are still creeping, and now your revenue is dropping, and that money in between has been spent.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think for a contractor to recognize that they're overbilled, they have to understand what an overbilling is. And in order to understand that, they have to have a decent understanding of just basic accounting and have a robust accounting solution. So an overbilling in its simplest form is the difference between what's been billed on a job and what you've earned on a job as a contractor. Earnings are calculated on an accounting basis by making an estimate of what your total costs on the job will be, and then taking the cost to date to calculate your percent complete. So cost to date over total cost gives you your estimated percent complete. Multiply that by your contract, and that's your revenue. Then you compare that with your billings, and your billings are going to either be higher than or lower than your revenues. They're never the same, not even at Disneyland on a sunny day. And the difference is your over or under billing. So first thing we need to do is just understand that what we bill on a job is not what we've earned on a job. And
Well said.
and yeah, so that's the first part of it. And then you said, okay, well, talking about the differences between, or the relationship between billings and payables. Billings are on the receivable side, right? The cash coming in. On the payables side, we've got a little bit of a similar process, similar dynamic, but quite a bit of tension between the two. So just the same way that we are working in the field and earning revenue as we work, our subs or our suppliers are doing things on our behalf and incurring costs that we recognize over time. And so we have to manage the revenue side and the expense side, the receivable side, the payable side.
Thanks for clarifying that, because I think a lot of people don't recognize that there is a distinction between the two. And one of the challenges that I've seen, and maybe you can help share this, we have a number of clients that are smart bill customers, and they recognize expense as one line item. So all the materials go into one bucket, the labor goes into one bucket, the equipment guy, the rental companies are all going into one cost code. They have no way of delineating where they actually sit on their actual complete to date when it comes to labor versus materials. And materials usually come first, right? Like, let's be honest, you get to a job site, materials follow.
Yeah.
And companies don't pay you for materials that are sitting on a job site. They pay you for materials that are incorporated into the work.
Yeah.
So your material bill is always going to be greater than your true receivable bill. What are some tips and tricks you can share with contractors about breaking them up into smaller manageable bite-sized segments?
Well, I think this is where predictability comes in. So you make a great point, which is that cash outflows are not going to be uniform across a job. At the beginning, you're going to have a slug. Those costs at the beginning are going to be heavy on the material. You're going to have to pay for that up front. You're not going to be able to bill for that as quickly as you're able to get the material on site. So you can know by looking at that job what the cash flows are going to look like if you have a good understanding of your job costing, because you can say, well, I know it's going to take me 3 weeks to get these installed. I'm going to be able to bill it after 5, and I'm going to collect it, right? So we can do a little bit of math there to know when our cash is coming in. And if we do that on our key jobs that we've got going, we've got the basis for forming a very robust cash projection on a week-by-week basis. And that's where we can take our accounting. I know contractors don't like to use the word accounting, but we can take our job costing, there we go, and we can use it to help us get some visibility into what our cash flows are going to look like for the next 2 or 3 months. Then we can deal with issues that come up, like, hey, I've got this job where I'm going to be really upside down for the first month because of the materials before I get them installed. And if I know that today, instead of in 3 months, or instead of in a month when I'm having a hard time making payroll, I can usually deal with it. When it comes as a surprise, that's a problem.
And I guess there's always that issue that somebody may not give you a check, right?
Oh, yes.
So there's that element of how long can you float it for before it starts to get a little bit more complicated. And I think having that ability to predict that on a job also defines if you're going to show up to the job site, right? So let's take the other side. I don't get paid. Why should I show up to a job site? And a lot of contractors are not keen to defend themselves on that side because they're worried about the relationship, whether it's a general contractor to an owner or a subcontractor to a GC saying, hey, like, I mean, I'm spending money. I need to make sure I collect. And there's a point in time where I will just stop. And I think if you don't know what that metrics is, you just don't know where that line is for you.
No, and that's a really good point. And to your point about the worrying about the relationship and contractors not wanting to push, my experience in situations like that is that while there might be a little bit of barking for at a contractor that's assertive on the payment side of things, in the long run, the relationships end up being a lot healthier and respectful when contractors are assertive about being treated fairly. And being treated fairly means being paid when you're supposed to be paid.
Yeah.
So,
At least knowing when the check is going to come.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I've seen that work out well, more than not, in terms of being concerned about how the relationship is going to go if you push.
Yeah.
And I also think one of the things that a contractor can do when they recognize that there is going to be a shortfall here, there is to talk to the owner, talk to the general. Sometimes you can get the permission to bill a little bit earlier, to get paid a little bit earlier for on-site materials. I've worked with some contractors who've ended up changing the schedule of values on contracts going forward just to help them with that specific cash flow issue where they're saying, hey, we're out all these materials up front. We have to order them, big lead times, cash flow. Yeah, we need it. So they changed the way they do business, and it really helped them.
Yeah, and I think part of changing the way you do business is know your business. And I guess the unfortunate reality is, and present company included here, I thought I was a very capable project manager who decided to have his own construction company. But when it came to accounting, that wasn't the skill that I learned at school, right? So accounting wasn't the thing that I enjoyed the most. It was also the thing that as long as there's money, I'm good. So I was fortunate that I got paired up with somebody who was good at accounting, and they knew how to make sure that my money was being managed properly. So is there any quick tips that you can provide to emerging contractors or even established businesses that, hey, accounting is not their thing, like that's not their jam, they're great at the trade, they're a great general contractor, but when it comes to managing their money, where do I start? Like, where do they start, Bryce? I mean, other than asking you, where can they start?
I think we start by talking about what accounting means. Well, every time we bid for a job, all we're doing is projecting our understanding of our job costs. So if you know that, then accounting can be more important to you. If you want to know how you're doing on your jobs in real time, one of the ways that you can get reliable intel on it is through job costing, right? And getting information on line by line basis on how we're doing. That's accounting. If we are concerned about cash flows and want to be able to manage those better without surprises, then it's accounting. So what I'm saying is if someone wants to do better about accounting, then understanding the why is what I have found to be the most helpful, because that can help you get through some of the unpleasantness of, I'm not an accountant, but I have to, it becomes worthwhile. So I think that's what I would say. Start with why. What are you looking to get out of it? Because if all you're doing with your accounting is saying, I'm just going to give it to my accountant and they're going to do the taxes at year end. Yeah, accounting is a drag. It's a burden. It's not a priority. But if you're saying, I really want to get something out of it, and that something is, I want to bid better, I want to know how my jobs are going better, I want to better manage my cash flow, all of a sudden we can talk about accounting.
You know what? That's well said. I think people don't take into consideration doing the job is one part of the aspect, but understanding the money side of the business is what's going to keep you afloat. And I think sharing that knowledge with your staff, there's some benefits of understanding job costing. Because now you can talk to your foreman and say, hey, listen, we've only got X number of hours budget based on our unit rate of worker. This is what's costing us. This is how much material we got on site. So don't order material for the sake of ordering material, right? Let's make sure that we're consuming the material that we have on the job site, and then we bring deliveries on that rhythm. So I think both you and I are saying if you don't break it up into smaller fragments, you're probably not going to be able to account for, hey, hate to use a pun word there, account for what's happening on your job site and then to kind of predict what's going to happen in the future. There's no prediction. If it's one big number, $1 million, that's not predictable. It's $1 million.
It's
right?
much harder to manage in big chunks.
Yeah.
More concentrated risk, just more concentration.
Yeah.
And concentration is one of the things that makes construction so challenging and interesting. If we're talking about a retail operation that has thousands of transactions a day, right, the impact of every transaction is very small. In construction, it's just the opposite. We have very few transactions. They're very large, very concentrated, high impact, and so we benefit when we put a little bit more effort into being strategic about what we do on the financial side of things, just because everything we do is so high impact.
So I think for the benefit of all the other people like me that in the construction world, I've gotten this experience where I understand the concentration that we do big bills with a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
While the zeros have no value, they have some substantial effects depending on what side of the decimal place they're on.
Correct.
Right? Because they're just zeros.
Yes.
On the left side, they're awesome. On the right side, they're meaningless for us.
Yeah.
It's very important, I think, for everyone to understand that, if you don't understand how you got to that $1 million number with all the small little buckets, that's probably your starting point. Is create smaller buckets to get to that $1 million number, if that's the number you got to get to. But you need to have small buckets. Is there a minimum number of stages? Like, do you recommend to your, let's talk subcontractors, do you recommend them breaking out things into labor, material, equipment, large furnishings, large equipment? Like, is there a recommended that you would give to a subcontractor?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I think there's a formula, a good way to figure out what the answers are. No, in the sense that I don't have a list of these are the ways you should break down your jobs, just because the trades are so different. So the way I get there, or the way I work with a contractor to help them get there, is it's just leading them with some questions about, all right, let's talk about the phases of a job in big broad terms, just English, right? Nothing crazy that an accountant wouldn't understand. Tell me about the phases of a job, and we talk about that. Tell me what makes up that phase, and we start realizing, okay, well, we identify the main elements of each phase, and then from there, it's usually pretty clear how we can break things down in a meaningful way. And to answer your question about allocation of cost, I think job costing is easy-ish if all we're doing is looking at the material that we order on a job and our direct labor.
I like the phased approach. I really do. At what stage or where you're going to be. Let's look at that component and time. We're looking at time and space, right? In a phase.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the way contractors think about things, in my experience.
100%. That's how we think. At this stage, we're going to be doing this, right?
Yeah.
This is who I should have on the job site based on that phase, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got guys that are great, pulling the job starting, and then you have those that are strong at finishing the job. There's usually very rarely that the guy who can start the job can finish it. They're two different humans.
True.
Yeah. Okay.
So those phases can help us identify the elements that should appropriately be job costed, in my experience. That's the way to get to the answer.
Awesome. Just really briefly for the benefit, I know that Bryce has been available to many contractors as a resource to talk to them. If you want to just quickly share, I know we're going to put it in the credits, but Bryce, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, are you available?
Yeah, absolutely. So levigo.com, Levvigo.com, and we're an outsourced construction accounting provider. There's a shortage of accountants generally in North America, and specifically in the construction industry, and so we're a nearshoring play. We find really bright, experienced accountants in Latin America. We hire them, train them, co-manage them, and turn them into construction accounting experts, and it's going really well. It's exciting.
Awesome. Well, I wish you continued success, Bryce. I look forward to collaborating with you on some more and doing some more series about accounting for construction. I want to call it, accounting for construction dummies, because really that's where we're at sometimes. But it's really important that I think a lot of the people who are aspiring to become independent contractors, want to start their own companies, it's important to know these little nuggets of information. I know that the bonding of the surety world, they love people like you, and they also want us to be paired up with people like you, because WIP, work in progress, is a very big calculator for them to understand risk from a surety perspective. So,
Indeed.
I thank you for being here with me today, Bryce, and I look forward to carrying on the conversation about construction and accounting.
Thank you, Zulq. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much, my friend.